Hi there, I'm Les.
And I'm Scandal.
And we've read a book. So, this is a review on the Ascent to Godhood.
By Ji Yang that I actually read.
Actually,
Hey.
Scandal performed this book, and we actually read the book all the way through.
Damn.
It was really interesting. The book itself is not that long. It's a novella.
It's really short.
It is really quite short. On the other hand, it is really quite good.
Interesting, yes.
Like, not only is it interesting, and then this is a full-on spoiler review.
Yeah, because we solidly went and read the whole thing. Like, I could not put it down. Like,
But I would say, even with full spoilers, given the format of this book, it's not going to ruin the book for you, because it's one of those books that starts at the end.
Yep.
And then goes back in time. So it already tells you that the main bad guy died, and that's where we're starting.
Yep.
And that our protag was in love with the main bad guy, and so they can't celebrate this event.
The joyous event of, we killed the villain. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so that is the premise of this book, is that you have your protagonist, or your main character, had an incredible internal
complex
love story,
life,
if you like,
yeah.
with the main villain, and that it has ended by the beginning of the book, and then they tell their entire story. So as they go back in time and tell their story, that it's gonna end in tragedy. It already ended bad. It did, but I loved so many things about this book. Like,
it's just
Scandal continued reading it after they did the audiobook, and I was just like, no, include me, because I was interested. And we do a lot of other things, so there's not always a lot of time to read, and this book really gripped us. It was super cool.
Yeah, no, like, so one of the reasons I really wanted to read this book is because, number one, I was like, dude, queer representation, awesome. The author themselves actually identifies basically as non-binary. And also, so this is a lesbian love story, basically. The character talks about, like, sure, they had other relationships, but the core main relationship really was basically their experience.
And it was between two women. And that is what this is,
God,
ultimately. You also have a woman villain that is not... Nobody in this book comes off as tropey to me at all.
The villain was a little bit for me, but it was also because I'd heard so many other male villains do it before. But in some ways, that was kind of nice. So I know some people will actually go, it's really nice to just have plain old bad guys. And in some ways, she was really great because, honestly, the main villain, so obviously this is not from her perspective, but it's from the perspective of the person who loved her.
Yes.
Of going... The protagonist describing kind of the characteristics of this main villain, and you realize that basically her bigger motivations is that she's like a lot of main male villains of being motivated by power, being motivated by family, but also that she's just inherently, this idea that she's just inherently kind of better than everyone else.
It's really interesting how it's framed, though, since it's all framed through the eyes of someone who loves her, and also after
hated
the fact,
the crap out of her too. Like, ouch.
Well, got hurt very badly by her.
No, I'm like, but is that love-hate balance that I feel like it was so good. Sorry, I'm gonna say
anyway. It was this experience of seeing her through a really interesting filter. One of the key things that I experienced throughout it was noting that while our protag is smart and capable and curious and very
skilled. Like she was
very skilled.
She's a quick learner. Like that is how she characterized herself, going, I learned these things that should have taken me 4 or 5 years or whatever it was. She's like, and I finished it in 2.
That she takes a lot of pride in her skills and in her ability to do things. That she also is very naive when it comes to her love interest. Incredibly so. And you see her paint this picture, and you watch her, even as she's telling the story historically, and get invested in her being set up for basically pain and failure.
And she tells you, though, too, of being like, I was an idiot.
Kind
of thing. She's like, I should have seen it. But I'm like, also the thing is that, okay, so I wanted to be like, #big mood.
Right.
Because really, when you're in that scenario and you're really just like, I know I'm capable and I know I'm skilled, but I just like... I connected so hard with someone. You were so willing to overlook so many red flags. Like, damn.
There was something so genuine about the protagonist and their enthusiastic, like, love and absolute commitment to their partner in every way. Like, they were just enamored of, in a fairly wholesome kind of way, of this person who was by all accounts not worthy of it, really.
Oh
I
yeah.
just, but it's just very, it's very interesting to listen to. The author has a great handle on their written craft by, based on my reading experience.
Mm-hmm.
They stuck with their subject really well. The voice is very, very clear and very distinctive. The whole book is characterized in this very clear voice of the
Oh yeah.
protagonist. And I like how it cuts in and out of them telling the story, because what this really bubbles down to is sort of basically a semi-intoxicated
Yeah.
rant at somebody who's pressing them for their life story.
Uh-huh.
And like there's cursing and there's ordering more,
Drinks.
alcohol,
Yeah.
and there's, sort of bitching off into a corner. But it all feels so very natural and clean. It's a very tight story where I don't think any of the words are wasted, and that's something that I love a lot in
Mm-hmm.
stories. Like in the case where an editor might go through and cut things out because the story drags in some places, it doesn't seem like there's really a minute of drag in here.
Yeah.
Like it's not a breakneck pace that hurries you along, but the entire thing moves at a very organic, engaging pace.
Right. No, I have to say, I did not regret reading this. Like, initially, like I said, I was a little bit kind of put off, and there were a couple of things, like, again, like I said, some of the tropiness in regards to her, but I think it was because I was, so, like, in regards to her partner, the queen,
Because you were
the empress,
defensive of the
because I was
protagonist.
defensive of her, just being like, you're watching this happen and going, no!
And it's one of those books that actually pulls an effective experience where it's sort of like walking into the beginning of a movie and you see your main character and their best friend dies, but you have no connection to any of it, right? And in this case, you then sit down at a table with that character, have basically a beer with them, and do shots while they tell you why that person mattered so much.
Well, the other thing, though, so what I also really liked, honestly, is the bits. So the thing is this whole book is established as Liz says, as a drunken conversation. But it's with a conversation with a character that's kind of the reader, but also obviously not the reader. It's clearly somebody who's actually already in this world, who actually has life and structure and things going on. So you get this weird exposition through this character that you have no voice for. All you have is just the voice of actually the protagonist responding back, going, so this thing about that thing, this thing about that thing, tell me about this thing, which was fascinating, and also left me going, what the hell are we saying? You know, and it was cool.
So if you haven't listened to the preview, I highly recommend that you do. But I also would recommend this book. If any of the things that we've talked about sound like they are your bag or up your alley, I would say you'd probably like this book.
And the tech in this book. Like, they didn't go into a lot of detail about... So this series is based off of a concept called silk punk. Now, I don't know exactly what it is, but, like... It's like the way the story goes is there's so much that's kind of implied
and
by
set up.
what's sort of set up. They don't exposit a lot. I really love that. There's not a lot of exposition, but it's clear that honestly the author knows what the crap is going on, and this is not just I did this cute little element over here and did this cute little element over here. It did not run off into a corner and sound like incohesive. Once it went, I performed this spell, and then you're like, wait a minute, it worked like this earlier?
So
why?
One of the things that made this book so clean was that the author never got lost in basically describing their own cleverness. They never went off and going, I've developed the system and isn't it so cool? They really just stayed in the character space.
It was a character
the whole
profile.
way. They had a very good handle and mastery of their character and wrote that very, very clearly. So this is one of the most enjoyable books that I've read in a while. And the subject matter didn't specifically pull me in the way it did with Scandal.
Right.
I wasn't opposed anyway. It just didn't grip me. But once I started hearing the book, I was like, no, I am for this. Additionally, it is set in China. It is, with Chinese people, and it is fictional China with, magic called slackcraft, as well as a silk punk sort of alternate history aesthetic. If you're familiar with steampunk, silk punk is similar to that. Instead of going, it's a lot like instead of going with steam
Victorian,
or with gasoline, you have a lot of like hot air ballooning going on, and a lot of like technology developed around the strength of silk.
Right.
Anyway, so that's really all I have to say about this book, is that I felt like the character was really well done. I felt like the story was very cleanly told, and I felt like it was engaging and well-paced the whole way.
God, no, so I have one more thing to say. So what I really liked, honestly, so that idea of not crowing about their own cleverness, right? So there was one part, so I'm going to spoil part of this, where basically there is a terrible incident where so the main protagonist uses slackcraft in order to break into somebody else's basically
Their chambers.
and break into their chambers, but it breaks all the spells
that were guarding
that
their
were
chambers.
guarding their chamber, right?
Mhm.
So this is also the wife of the current emperor, right?
Yes.
So like she ends up breaking all these spells, and she doesn't realize that she's actually not only broken all the spells, she really has broken all the spells that are even there to protect them. She only finds out way too late, and it gets so many people killed.
It gets her in a lot of trouble.
Including the current empress, not the one who becomes the big bad empress. It's actually the what became the big bad empress is it was her
sister-in-law.
Her sister-in-law, and it's so damn sad.
However,
like you just feel, but it's also like you didn't crow about your own thing. It was going like
it's very, very again, it's that very tight, clean writing style where when the character goes in and does the action, they just dispel the spells so they can espionage into this room.
Right.
If you'll allow me to
Sneak
verb
into the
that
room.
word, because I want to verb espionage. That they really
espionages.
they really don't think about that those spells are also there to keep people outside the palace out.
Because they're just
and
performing a task.
Because they're just performing a task, and they also are an underling. In that way that I said they seem a bit naive about some things, they really don't think past a lot of what their mistress tells them to do in a lot of cases. They don't think about the bigger picture. In a way, our protagonist is very, like, smart and curious and capable, but they don't do a lot of examination of things. They're not a deep thinker. They're very action oriented.
It's like that thing of intelligence versus wisdom. This is a really good example. I'm really good at guessing things and figuring shit out,
but I'm not very
I
wise.
don't actually have a lot of a knowledge base to build that off of, so you make a lot of hasty and dumb decisions sometimes.
And when this scene happens, the author doesn't do some of the stuff they do of going, well, and this thing did this thing, which led to that thing and created such and such, in a great cascade of words and proof that they thought everything through.
Right.
It really is just, after all the tragedy happens, you then get this experience of the character putting it together based on other people expositing it. So it happens through conversation, very cleanly, very simply. And again, there is no really, there doesn't feel like the author is showing off how smart they were at any point. And it really just adds so much charm to this book.
And like, damn, I cried. I got whooped.
I had the feels about this book. Like, so hard.
Damn.
Like for 2 days, I really was, like I read through this book, and for 2 days I kind of just sat there and had this emotional experience to unpack, because it was complex and powerful, and
it hurt, too.
It hurt. Even though here's my main character, their love interest is dead. That is the start of the book.
And the love interest was the bad guy.
And the love interest was the bad guy. By the end of it, it hurts.
Oh, dang.
In this really meaningful payoff kind of way. Not like I'm hurting you, like meaninglessly or anything. Not like I'm just trying to give you a pain fest. But in this really sensitive, connective kind of way where you just relate so hard to this person's personal struggle, to their sadness, to their loneliness, to why they made the choices they did. And it's really lovely. It's a great slice of the human condition.
Yeah. No, actually, this is the kind of book. So there actually are 3 other books, I think, attached
in the
to
series. This is the 4th one in a series.
So,
however, it stands alone.
It really does. But I'm actually been putting it on my list of going, I want to go and actually read the other ones. So look forward to potentially me reading at least the previews for those, and I might then we might actually go and then just read those books. They are much bigger though, so we'll see what happens. But damn, I'm very excited by this series.
Yeah. So in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. If you had thoughts on this, or if you have read it and you have input, or if you had questions or anything like that, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. And other than that, take care of yourselves out there.
Yeah, enjoy your day, guys.
Bye. Bye.